Yeah boy, welcome to Watch Me Build It and welcome to my review of the DIY Watch Club 40mm vintage diver. Imagine being the talent scout that discovered Brad Pitt or Giannis Antetokounmpo. Young people with a few flaws but loads of potential. That's kind of how I feel about the DIY Watch Club 40mm diver. It's got a few flaws, but it has incredible potential and really can become amazing. Please wait for the end of this video where I give you a taste of what this case can become. Before we get on with the review, can I please ask you to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone that you think would be interested. Let's flip the camera and get on with it. Cheers. And so there it is, the DIY Watch Club 40mm vintage diver. What do I think? Well, I'm going to do my typical outside-in review and give you my thoughts on this watch. So if we come to the buckle, the keep is very straightforward. It's got a D for the DIY Watch Club, and I think that's done very tastefully on the corner. It does the job well enough, and then that of course is attached to an FKM strap. And I've never really encountered FKM yet, and they're actually really great straps. Supple, nice to the feel, and good straps. Something that I did notice, just a point of quality, is how there's a recess in that actual keeper that fits the profile of the strap. So I do like the strap. Obviously, they're wanting to keep the price down quite a bit. The one issue that I do have that's going to come up as I speak about this watch is it's not a pure retro diver. There are a few decisions that have been made that make it actually, that are not vintage, and the strap is one of them. I would have said perhaps a parachute strap or a NATO would have been a more sort of time or period correct decision from the DIY Watch Club. Then we come around to the Caseback. Now here, I think the DIY Watch Club have done a really good job. Let's have a look at the profile of the Caseback, and you'll see they've managed to achieve a very slender profile in spite of the fact that this is a display Caseback. And if they wanted to slim this watch down even more, I suppose that's a place they could go. They could do a solid Caseback. But the DIY Watch Club are all about building a watch by hand, a mechanical watch, and maybe for the first time, and so a display Caseback does really well. And here they've done an amazing job, because this display Caseback is the widest display I have seen yet. You can literally see the movement edge to edge. In fact, my son pointed out this morning that the width of the display Caseback is the same width as the crystal on the front. So really great. The movement needed a little bit of cleaning when it arrived. That's not uncommon on these NH movements, but there's nothing that a little bit of Rodico doesn't fix enough. I've taken a bit of time to take away all sort of fingerprints and any marks that might be there. So this really is a great Caseback. I like the look, I like the feel, I like the water resistant stainless steel and the reference number of the watch that are engraved on there. Then coming around to the case itself. Now this case is something that I think they have done profoundly well. It is so slender on wrist. I'll do a few shots where I compare it with like the Moki's offering and some other offerings, and you'll see how slender it is, but the profile is really slender and it sits on the wrist beautifully well. It's got, as per the original, the highly polished flanks. I find those a problem. These flanks are really prone to picking up micro scratches and getting marked with dirt really quickly, and it's a problem, but that's the way they did the original, and you know, if you want to be close to it, you got to keep to that. It's also got the drilled lugs, and those are really practical, really handy. Obviously not a big deal if you've got the quick release strap like we've got over here, but they're handy if you're using something that is not quick release. Okay, before I go on to the brushing on the lugs, there's a feature on this watch that they haven't included. It is the chamfered bevel that you get along this edge on the originals and on many other watches that are based on this. That's something the DIY Watch Club haven't included in this design. I think it gives a little bit of extra elegance to the watch, but it's really not the end of the world. However, the transition to the brushing is very crisp and very clean. And then it is a radial brush shape along the lugs, and it's really done very well in my opinion. And I did mention this in the unboxing, but it's really beautifully finished behind or between the lugs. There's a little bit of debris in there, dust and lint that picks up when you're wearing it, and that's inevitable. But really, I think the case is done really very well. Then onto the bezel. Now, this is a 60 click bezel. I mentioned this in the unboxing, but it really is a good bezel for a 60 click. It doesn't have any back play. So once it rests in its position, it doesn't have back play. It's got a good sound. I'm going to take a glove off so that I can just turn the bezel nicely. Okay, here's the sound. It's not a crisp, snickety-clickety feel though. It's kind of like a more muted, softer feel. Now bear in mind the original 5512s and 3s would not have actually had a click on the bezel. They were just friction bezels, if I understand matters. At least they were at the beginning. So that's the bezel. The bezel inserts on this one, very interesting. It's not an insert with a 15-minute grade. Rather, they've decided to go for stuff that an insert that might have been more common on a mil-spec watch, where you had the indices all the way around the dial. But it really is nice. It's an aluminium bezel insert, and I think you can swap it out with bezel inserts that are made for this kind of watch from other manufacturers. I'm going to be trying that soon because I want to mod this very, very badly. Then we have a look at the crystal, and I think they've done a good job here. There is a downside to this crystal. In order to achieve this bubble dome, which is done so very well, they have had to make a compromise, and it's not made of sapphire. It's a mineral crystal. And a mineral crystal means you're going to get micro scratches. I've already got some on this crystal. And the problem with a mineral crystal is that a micro scratch cannot be buffed out. If it was plexiglass, you could buff it out. If it was sapphire, it wouldn't get scratched. But a mineral crystal picks up scratches, and you're not going to be rid of them very easily. And so that'll be part of the aging process of your watch, is that your crystal is going to pick up scratches. But the bubble is amazing. It's not super high in the dome, and I really think that it's one of the things that gives this the most incredible vintage charm. The crown is a good size. You can see it's got the D inscribed. Oddly, they have decided to have a push-down crown. So this clicks out right away to your date change position, and then another click and you're onto the time change. Let's just get it to 10 to 2 like that. But it doesn't screw in. And that means this watch only has 100 meter water resistance. Now 100 meters is fine, like for swimming and for showering and for washing the dishes and for things ordinary people like me will be doing. But it's not good like if you actually wanted to go diving with this. But then you wouldn't use this watch for diving. Part of the crown assembly is the eagle beak crown guard, and that is an incredible touch. This is something that makes this case superbly unique. You cannot really find much out there with eagle beak crown guards, and I think that is one of the things that makes this case very desirable. So case, bezel insert, crystal, all really, I think, amazing. Then we come onto what I esteem as the weaker points of this watch. The dial is done really well. To be honest, it's well printed. It's a nice matte finish, which was true to the earlier models of these watches. They were tool watches. The earlier models didn't have glossy dials. It's got beautiful red text that says water resistant, automatic, and then it's got the DWC001 as the model number over there. It's got batten indices instead of the circles and rectangles, and that is in keeping with the DIY Watch Club's design language, but it's not very retro. But it's still an acceptable dial, I'd say. It's still got a retro feel when it goes with this watch. The decision that confuses me a great deal is why they went for black hands. They reduced the legibility on this watch something tremendous. I don't know why black hands were chosen. All of the older watches have got silver hands. Some of them have got golden hands. None of them have got a black hand, and I'm not sure why these hands are black. It reduces the legibility on the black dial tremendously. If there is like a V2 of this kit, I would really suggest having a look at these hands and at least changing them to silver. Part of the problem with the hands is the second hand. It is very slender, it's black and almost illegible. In fact, when it passes over the loom plots, look at the 12, it's difficult even to see where that is. Whereas, you know, the older dive watches had a lollipop hand or a snowflake hand or something like that and made them easier to read. So what I conclude in finality is that this is a really good watch and it's begging to be modified. It's begging to be upgraded. And the thing is, it's really mod able because it'll take any NH35 29.5mm dial. It'll take any NH35 set of hands that are made for a 29.5mm dial. And that means this has profound potential. So I'm going to do a couple of mods and I'd like to show them to you and hear what you have to say about them. Thanks. Cheers. So I'm calling my first mod the Warrior. I'm using a matte dial with patinaed indices, patinaed sword hands, and a green parachute strap. Let's have a look and see how this turns out. There we go. I think we've achieved a very good mil-spec look about this watch. That bubble dome is just really so good. Yeah, you can see it on the parachute strap. This is an unusual strap. It's a parachute material strap, but it's actually built like a NATO. I love these sword hands, I always have. And the mil-spec's one of my favorite looks on a 5512 watch. I've left links for all of the parts or parts like them for this build below under the title Warrior Build. The DS Watch Mod store on AliExpress will also do custom printing on a dial. Here's a wrist roll. Wrist rolls are helpful, but I find they don't actually tell the story. It's one of the difficulties of making watch videos is it's difficult to transmit the actual feel of a watch, but this watch wears very well, very slender on the wrist. Just a couple of photos. So the second build is the classic, and I use a matte dial with white indices, the Mercedes hands with white loom, and a 3-link bracelet. It's a more modern bracelet, but it turned out it fits. And this is what it looks like. And now we're getting in to see what this case can really do. And I really like this no date look about this watch. Again, there are links for parts like these below, and they're listed under the classic. Again, there we just see this case is so slender and so good, and this strap, it connects well. I'm gonna leave links for one with solid end links, and I'm gonna leave links for straps with the hollow end links, and there are also straps that have got the more classic look about them. Here we see it on wrist. Again, I really love the way that this watch wears. I love the way that this classic looks. I think it's actually very, very good. And we have a couple of photos. And for the final build, I decided to test an NH34 movement in this case. We've got a GMT Bezel Insert. We've got some gold Mercedes hands and a beautiful tropical dial by Namoki. And I've also got a distressed leather strap. Now let's see how this one worked out. Here we have vintage goodness all the way. Wow. Actually, probably my favorite of the three builds. I just think this is showing off. If this is a vintage diver case, this is where this can go. This is an older strap I've got, so it's got real distress to it. I love this tropical dial by Namoki. It's a rail dial, it's gilt, so I put the gilt hands on it. Oh, and I'm just loving it. This is a different bezel insert. It doesn't fit perfectly on this watch, so I'm going to give you a bit of detail over here. If you want to buy a bezel insert, it's a 37.1 OD and 30.4 ID. Hopefully that information helps you. Also thought I'd show you there's no click spring on this case. Instead, there's this spring-loaded post that gives you the click on the bezel. And here's the wrist roll. On the vintage GMT, eagle beak, rail dial, gilt hands. What more could you ask for, right? Pure caramel and gold beauty. Parts for this build are listed below under the title Traveler Build, and we'll play out with a few shots of this one. Hopefully these builds have inspired you to take hold of a set and make it your own.